Every day, Americans hand over a portion of their paychecks in taxes. But where does that money actually go? It may feel like your hard-earned dollars vanish into a black hole of bureaucracy, but in reality, they fund concrete services and programs. Understanding the federal budget is crucial. In the US, about 2/3 of all spending is mandatory, set by law, funding programs like Social Security and Medicare, while the remaining 1/3 is discretionary, voted on each year by Congress. The money you pay does things like pay seniors' pensions, help veterans see doctors, or even build roads. To see the big picture, think of the budget as a giant pie chart. For example, in 2024, roughly $1.5 trillion went to Social Security and $1.6 trillion to healthcare programs, Medicare and Medicaid. Another slice, about 13% of the budget, goes to national defense, $820 billion in 2023, and billions more pay the interest on the national debt, nearly $882 billion in 2024. We'll break these down and explain them with facts and even some charts so you know exactly how your tax dollars are used. Mandatory versus discretionary. Congress divides spending into two main buckets. Mandatory spending, about 65 to 70% of all federal outlays, covers entitlement programs set by law, has include Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and safety net benefits. Discretionary spending, the rest, is decided each year by Congress in the appropriations process. Over half of discretionary spending goes to defense, with the balance funding education, infrastructure, research, and other services. Major categories. The largest single program is Social Security, which provides retirement and disability benefits. Next come health care, Medicare for seniors and Medicaid for low-income Americans. Combined, those three programs account for about 75% of mandatory spending. Defense is the biggest chunk of discretionary spending. Other categories include income support, unemployment, food assistance, veterans benefits, interest on debt, and a variety of federal agencies. Revenue sources. The government raises money mainly through taxes. Roughly half of federal revenue comes from individual income taxes, about 1/3 from payroll taxes for Social Security, Medicare, and the rest from corporate taxes and duties. These tax receipts and borrowing cover the costs of all spending. In real terms, the federal government spent about $6.8 trillion in FY 2024, the year ending September 2024, while taking in about $4.9 trillion. That $1.9 trillion gap, a deficit, means Washington borrowed the rest. As a share of the economy, spending was 23.4% of GDP in 2024, up from 22.4% in 2023, highlighting the growing budget imbalance. Mandatory spending breakdown, FY 2024. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid make up 75% of all mandatory outlays. The largest slice of the budget goes to so-called mandatory programs, meaning spending that is required by law. These are sometimes called entitlements because people who meet certain criteria are entitled to receive benefits. The biggest mandatory programs are Social Security, $1.5 trillion FY 2024. This is federal retirement and disability insurance for seniors and disabled Americans who paid into the system. It alone consumes roughly 20 to 22% of total federal spending. Medicaid, $1.6 trillion FY 2024. Medicare provides health care for the elderly, and Medicaid covers low-income families, children, and the disabled. Together, they're a similar size as Social Security. Other mandatory programs, $0.8 trillion. This includes supplemental security income, unemployment insurance, food stamps, SNAP, veterans benefits, $0.3 trillion in 2023, and various income support programs. Individually, they're much smaller, each a few percent of the budget, but they add up. These programs are on autopilot. Congress doesn't debate each year whether to fund them. Instead, spending automatically adjusts to how many people qualify and what benefits are set by law. For example, if more seniors retire, Social Security outlays rise. In fact, mandatory spending now makes up nearly 2/3 of all federal spending, up sharply from past decades as America's population ages. By 2022, Social Security and Medicare alone were about 10% of GDP. This guaranteed spending on citizens is one reason many Americans have a safety net, but it also means these programs dominate the budget.